Don Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. You know, when I first started out in business many years ago, ancient times, they had a saying, in God we trust, all others pay cash. Now the world has changed. With us is Jeff Meshel, who's written a book about it, which I frankly, I've been looking forward to this interview for since we set it up because trust has always been a complicated issue for me. I'm sure it is for other people. Jeff Michelle, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, as we ask all our guests, first, Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself personally, then what you do, and finally, where people can learn more about you on your website.
Well, probably a lot I could tell you. So, from a business perspective, I'm a real estate guy. I buy buildings, own and run them. I serve on a bunch of different boards. I was on the board of Signature Bank in New York, which unfortunately went down. Shouldn't have, but that's another whole conversation. I was on the board for 15 years. I'm involved in a lot of philanthropic things. I get involved in different types of investments and busy guy, but my passion and what I spend a ton of time on is this word called networking. I've created organizations in that space, something called the Strategic Forum. I'm chairman and founder of that organization. I do all sorts of events to help people, put people together. My passion is about making a difference, and I really enjoy very much connecting people to help them. And in the long run, you live your life that way. It's very bountiful, and things wind up coming back. But I don't do these things as a quid pro quo. I do it because it's my passion. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. And what made you, you've written a book? Why?
Well, I've written three books. My first two books were about networking. My first one was One Phone Call Away: Secrets of the Master Secrets of the Master Network, and I that exploded. I was all over the country speaking. I was on Today's Show. The second book is called The Opportunity Magnet, and the book that you and I are going to discuss today has nothing really to do with networking. It has to do with my strength and my weakness. And being a giver, someone that cares a lot, I'm a very trusting person. And unfortunately, I had a horrible experience with a crooked partner. Now, I mean, that's not such a crazy story because this type of stuff happens. But my crooked partner was a sociopath, and he's now graduated to a psychopath. His wife went off a terrace last year in Boca, Florida. Mother of three generally don't jump off terraces. Is being sued by the planet. In 2019, after knowing 20 years and trusting him implicitly for a whole host of reasons, I shut down my company because there was so many things that were wrong for a long period of time, and then I discovered not just thievery, but sabotage, forgery, fake names, had fake email addresses, doing heinous things. You can't even make it up. It's people that know me. His name was David Kushner, and know him, David Kushner, say that this book that I wrote, it should be the next Netflix series. It was very extreme. And what happened when I discovered all these heinous, horrible things, and I was really not in great shape. If you saw me in 2019 when I was discovering all these things to the extreme, my hands were shaking like this, my blood pressure went way up, and I got really mad at myself, really, really angry at myself because I trusted him implicitly. And there were all sorts of signs, all sorts of triggers that should have made me more suspect. And I either didn't dig into them or I accepted lies as answers. And that was a humongous mistake. I kicked the can and I wound up getting kicked very badly. And I stood in my apartment in Manhattan looking out the window, writing the things that he did, which you can't even make them up. And I was looking out my window and I said, I trusted this person implicitly. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? There's no trust out there. There's no trust about anything in this country. The hatred, the separation. I won't even go to politics. There's no trust about the extremity of these movements that are causing, hatred and people. There's such division. So I did a tremendous amount of research on that word, and I realized that we all are not aware enough of this word trust. And I also realized that trust is at the core to everything in our lives. Everything we do, everything we're about, its foundation is trust. And I did massive research on the word, and I wrote this book to impart very important knowledge, insights, so that we become much more aware and are less likely to make silly, bad mistakes. And that's, the crux of it. Trust.
Well, you know, Jeff, you're absolutely right. Okay, so now you want to tell us more. You decided that trust has gone out the window almost in America.
So, so
What have you learned?
what was fascinating about this happening was that as I was doing my research and thinking about it, I would send chapters to people while I was writing it. And every time I sent a chapter to someone to get what's your thoughts, what's your opinion, what do you think about what I'm writing? It was I got incredible reactions. Not only did they think what I was doing was incredibly important, they started telling me how they were violated by trust. And what I discovered, there are no exceptions. There's not one person that I've spoken to that's not been violated in trust, either on a personal basis or in business or both. And some of the stories are so extreme that I actually put them in the manuscript. I actually put them in the book. So the book goes so deep into so many subjects. Aside from what happened with me with the crooked bad partner, I started looking at other things. So by example, the second chapter of the book, it's called, title is Should I Buy What I'm Sold? And it talks about all these products that are marketed to us with fallacious representations. There's no dearth of fake products out there that have representations that aren't true. And in fact, not only that, um, there are products being sold that are extremely dangerous. The government doesn't oversee these products. So, an example, your listeners should go download an app called Yuka, Yuka. It's in our phone. It's a little carrot. This is a great app. Why? It was created, I think, in Europe somewhere, and it's now here. You go into a store, whether it's a drugstore or a supermarket, and this app, you scan the barcode on the product, and it immediately comes up the product, and it rates the product from 1 to 100, 1 being horrible, the worst, 100 being the best. And if it's bad, it'll tell you the ingredients in it that are bad. And then if you scroll all the way down, it'll tell you products similar that are much, much better or that are not bad. So, by example, if you go into a drugstore, any drugstore, every drugstore, whenever you go in and you see all those suntan lotions that are in the front of the drugstore, Copper Tone, Sunbum, all the ones that we know the names of, and you scan the barcodes, they are all bad. They all have bad ingredients in them. I mean, hazardous ingredients. Literally, it's hazardous ingredients. Yet they still sell them. Now, if you scroll down, it'll tell you good suntan lotions. You never heard of them before. They're not in the front of the store. You have to go search where you can buy them. Literally, my wife does that. She goes and finds the good suntan lotions, and they're not that easily obtained. You have to go to a special place to get them. So the point is, we buy things and we assume they're good and we believe the representations. And unfortunately, many of the times the representations are far from accurate. And so the book goes into so many things that are relevant to our lives. And the attempt here is not to make mistakes, to get smarter.
Hmm. Okay. So let's back up. Do you have a website where people can learn more?
Well, there's a lot out there about me. There's something on the book. I've got. I mean, if they go to Amazon, you can read all the reviews on the book. I've done a bunch of interviews. I'm kind of all over the place. I've not turned this into a business. I wrote this book to make a difference. I'm very busy in all the things I do. So I promote it from the perspective of being able to talk to a nice gentleman like you that gave me the wherewithal to share this with your audience. There is a website, but I'm not really focused on putting so much stuff on that. I just go out there and talk to people, and people buy the book and they reach out to me. I've had such crazy stories of people reaching out to me and thanking me. You want to hear one quick story?
Mm-hmm. Go, please. That's why you're here.
So I have this tennis pro that I play with, really nice guy. And after the third time I played with him, I said, Julian, next time I come, I'm going to bring you a copy of my newest book. And I did, and I gave it to him. 5 days later, 6 days later, he texts me and he says, you changed my life. I sort of went, whoa, that's, pretty strong statement. I didn't respond to his text because I was playing with him the next day. So I go to the court, I walk up to him and I said, Julian, I saw you wrote me. I said, what do you mean? He said, I want to show you something. He takes his phone. Now this is taking place in Miami Beach. And he shows me this picture of this beautiful girl. And he says, I've been going out with her for a year and a half. She's Russian. As soon as he said she was Russian, I got a little nervous because down here in Florida, that's like a flare over the bow. He said she's beautiful. She wants to get married. She's pressuring me to get married. Her mother's pressuring me to get married. get along so well, and I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. And I keep vacillating. I go back, forth, back, forth. And this has been going on for a while. I'm getting a lot of pressure. It's getting uncomfortable. One day I said, I'm going to do it. And the next day, I just can't. Jeff, I read your book and I broke up with her. So I went, whoa. He said, you made me realize so many things. One of which, based upon what I learned, I don't like her. I don't like her character. I don't like who she is in the way. There's so many things I didn't think about, I didn't realize. But after I read your book, I realized I didn't like her, so I broke up with her. And he looks at me and says, I want to thank you so much.
Well, a lot of men will trade knowledge for a beautiful woman.
To different type of demands.
When I started out in business, you could shake hands and the deal was done. Now the deal is done only when the check clears the bank. Isn't that?
It's a sad state of affairs. I mean, that's accurate. There was a time that a handshake was a binding agreement. Today, there's no binding agreements. In fact, there's so many things that go on that are just so unscrupulous. It's a very sad state. And it just, this is where things have gone. I mean, there's so many elements of where things had integrity at one time. It's evaporated.
Well, we've been talking about the book. What's its title? And you have a copy. What's its title? And show us a copy of the book.
Trust is a double-edged sword. Trust me. And the author is Waywill, as you can see. I had to use a pen name because I share in detail the stories about the bad experience I had with my bad, crooked partner. And the publisher wouldn't let me use my name because they had some concern about their liability. That being said, so Waywill is actually a combination of my middle name and my son's middle name. My middle name is Wayne, and my son's middle name is William, hence Waywill.
Okay. Where can people get it? Barnes and Noble?
Yeah, it's in the stores, but the easiest, you can just go on Amazon, and first of all, it's worth going on Amazon because you can read all the reviews. They're all 5-star, by the way, so I just want to, which is kind of cool. But it's quick, it's fast, and I mean, the publisher has the book. It's in the stores, but that's like probably the fastest way to get it.
But you say two-sided sword. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, the trust that's positive, where you do the right things, you have integrity, the decisions you make, the relationships you have, the positive side of trust is the good side of the sword. The negative side is where we get abused, where because we trust someone or we trust something that we believe to be something that it's not, and we get, hurt, taken advantage of. Hence, trust is a double-edged sword. I believe, and I've not changed, that we all are trusting, some of us more so than others. I happen to be a very trusting person. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I share them in the book, by the way. I'm very personal about my life. Some of the stories are embarrassing. Some people said to me, Jeff, why would you share that? And I said, because if I can't be truthful, if I don't share these things, I can't ask the reader to do that for themselves. I tell everyone that reads this book, when you're reading this, stop, pause, reflect. Think about your life. Think about the things you did or you didn't do. Think about the violations you've experienced and learn from them. So today, I've not changed from being a trusting person. But Ronald Reagan said it. I'm now live to it. Trust, but verify. Trust, but verify. We just have to be much smarter about it and just not take things for granted and always check. You got to always check. And if there at the end of the book, I have the 10 commandments of trust. One of the commandments is where it's, your gut is an indicator. I believe 95% of the time, maybe a little more, your gut feeling, your gut instinct is spot on. And to defy your gut probably is a mistake. Barring details, you have to do analytics and things like that to make a decision. That's a different thing. But where your gut, do I like this person? Do I not like it? Do I want to have a relationship with this person? If your gut says something's wrong, there's something wrong. And don't defy your gut. And the times I defied my gut, I've gotten hurt.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, can you give us an example of a positive where you've trusted and it's paid off?
I've got a lot of positives where it's paid off. And it's not so much my gut, it's just that I because I'm a trusting person, I have a lot of people that I really do trust that I'm very close to. I do a lot of things. I'm on different boards. I'm involved in philanthropic things. I've created an organization called the Strategic Forum, which has a chapter in New York City, one here in South Florida. It's about 30 CEOs in each chapter. And the bond is that we're all part of a team. Team is not a word for me, it's an acronym. Together, everyone achieves more. And there are people in there that I really trust, that I know for a lot of years, that I know really care about me. I care about them. And we watch each other's back. It's not about the money that we make, it's about the friendship, loyalty, and reliance on each other. I mean, I have so many stories about things that have happened because of those relationships. And that really is valuable. That's really meaningful. So I am not changing from being not a trusting person. I'll always be trusting. I'm just smarter about it now.
Well, you say you have 10 commandments. Can you give us one or two that you think are important? Hmm.
Well, I'll give you another one, but I'll give the story behind it first, which is there's a chapter in the book called What Happened to the Humans. And that chapter is about recognizing how incredible over time how things have changed from a technology perspective. I say that I remember, as you do as well, going across a bridge or going into a tunnel. We had to stop and pay a toll to a human being. I always said as a kid, I said, God, what a terrible job. Can you imagine sitting there all day and you just collect the toll? It's not very stimulating. Well, we don't do that anymore. The technology advances now. The technology reads your license plate, you get a bill. That job has been disintermediated. Technology has this incredible advantage of changing things, making things better, but also eliminating jobs that existed at one point. Hence, if we go fast forward to where we are today, look where technologies have gone. Look at our phones. Our phones are computers. Our phones are not just phones. There's sources of all sorts of data. There are ways of communicating. It's amazing. This chapter reflects on two things that are really serious that I think about, question of what we can trust. One of which is social media. Social media, as fun as it is, and all this stuff that people impart, some people are making a lot of money utilizing a business out of social media, it's also extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous because things can happen. An example would be what just happened in the banking world. The run on the banks was caused by things on social media that caused the run. When Signature Bank, first Silicon Valley, but then Signature, the communication in social media caused the run. It destroyed banks. Whereas in the old days, that wouldn't have happened like that. Secondly, even worse, I share a story. I listen to a lot of TED Talks. I mean, they're excellent. Some of them are really, really good. I listened to a TED Talk, which I share that story in this chapter, of a woman who's a very prominent Indian journalist from India, very attractive woman. But she was controversial. She wasn't liked. Somebody took her physicality and put it in a porn video and blasted it in social media. That's called a deep fake. You can go on your phone and download the apps to create deep fakes. Now, some of them are funny. I could take your head and put a moose on top of it, and you could be speaking, it'd be a moose speaking. Ha ha, funny. But you could do things like I just shared, where this woman's career was almost destroyed and she had no recourse. Even worse is that you could take an image of Putin, him speaking, create a deep fake video and say he's blasting off nuclear bombs to hit the United States and put that out in social media. What happens? And there's so many examples of what could happen. So the social media, and the next thing we got to be afraid of is artificial intelligence, because that in the wrong hands is going to be devastating. One of the 10 commandments is be very, very conscious of what you post on social media. Matrimonial attorneys I know, one of which said to me, the first thing they do when they take on a new client going through a divorce, they go on social media and look to see what they could find about the other spouse. And in one case, my lawyer told me he found something that was so extreme that was a very decisive factor in the litigation and the divorce. Be very careful and mindful about what you post on social media. That's another 10 commandment.
Someone sent me this yet last night. This, they have Photoshop Princess Diane naked. So now there's a whole series out there. She's not dead. She's being white slaved in the Middle East. But you look at it, you have to look at it for a long time before you realize it's a Photoshop picture or pictures.
So think about how dangerous all this could become. Think about the extremity of when you have extreme movements that are out there that are potentially violent, and you post something that's disingenuous that fuels reaction. I could give examples, but the reality is not so far just in our own minds to think about the things that could cause shootings, riots, killings, break-ins. It's one flick away. You push a button and something can happen. So these technologies, as amazing as they are incredibly dangerous. And what can we trust? That's why in that chapter I go into all these analytics about what we're talking about now.
Well, that was a great one. Can you give us one more before? Uh, can you give us one more?
Another example of technology? Well, I think about artificial intelligence. I mean, obviously, it's growth and adoption over the last year it just exploded. I mean, it's just amazing some of the things that it does or is doing or what's going to happen. We don't even understand, you and I, the implications of artificial intelligence and what it can replace or take over. If you consider 9/11, which was, I was in New York City that day, how horrific that was. It took airplanes to crash into the buildings to cause that disaster. Artificial intelligence in the wrong hands could potentially take over the entire aeronautic system, ferrying planes all over the place, take over them and theoretically have them all crash into each other because someone took control of the entire system using artificial intelligence, and maybe 100 planes wind up crashing in midair. Now that's, I'm contriving this. Obviously, God forbid that happens. But the point is the utilization of these advanced technologies will enable something really bad to happen that couldn't happen if the technology didn't exist and wouldn't happen if it doesn't get into the wrong hands. And unfortunately, in this world, there are a lot of wrong hands, bad people, as we all know.
Very definitely. Oh, your book again and how people can get it?
Trust is a double-edged sword. Trust me. Buy Will. It's in the stores, but again, the easiest is just go on Amazon. You'll see it there, and I recommend that only because you can read all the reviews. And some people are really impacted by the book, and they share some personal stuff in the reviews.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes left. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Don't forsake trust. There are a lot of people out there that have gotten hurt, whether it's on a personal level or business. Trust is such an important thing. I just really want people to be much more aware and to think about the importance of it. Its integrity is everything, and there are a lot of very good people out there. There are people in your lives that have totally sincere. Embrace that, but also be mindful of what's out there. Learn about, again, like even just the products, what we're buying. There's so many things we have to be much more cognizant of. We have to be much more aware. And most important, don't kick the can. If something's wrong and you feel it, sense it, something's wrong. And because if you kick the can, you might get kicked and where, and that could hurt. So, and by the way, my name's Jeffrey Meshel. You can Google me, Meshel. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, has a question, if I can be helpful, I'm one phone call away. The title of my first book, I'd be glad to respond and impart whatever I can do to help.
Well, on that note, Jeff Meshel, we say thank you for a very, very interesting half hour. Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you. Have a great day.